Captain Jiwan looked out the window of her ship at the strange new star system. The new soul had been traveling for 3 months to reach this place. It was the first time humans had ever gone so far from Earth. The year was 2157, and humanity had finally learned how to travel faster than light. "Captain, we are getting some strange readings," said Lieutenant Kiwan from his station. He was the ship's science officer and had been watching the computers all morning. "There are metal objects moving near the third planet." Jiwan walked over to look at his screen. She was a tall woman with short black hair and smart eyes. She had been chosen to lead this mission because she was calm and made good decisions. "What kind of metal objects?" "They look like ships, Captain. Very big ships, much bigger than ours." Dr. Hyunwoo came running from his lab. He was the ship's expert on alien life. For years, humans had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now it seemed they had their answer. "Captain, this is amazing. We might be about to meet other intelligent beings." Jiwan felt excited, but also worried. "Send them a message, Kiwan. Use the friendship signals we prepared." Kiwan typed on his computer and sent out radio waves that carried simple math problems and pictures of humans. These were meant to show that Earth people were smart and peaceful. They waited. Minutes passed like hours. Then the computer made a sound. "Captain, they are answering," Kiwan said. "But the message is strange. They are not using math or pictures. They are sending something that hurts my head when I try to understand it." Suddenly, the ship shook. Red lights started flashing everywhere. "Captain!" shouted Ensign Bora from her post. "3 alien ships are coming toward us very fast." On the main screen, Jiwan could see them now. The alien ships were huge and black, shaped like pointed spears. They moved through space with no sound, getting closer every second. "Try to talk to them again," Jiwan ordered. "Tell them we come in peace." But before Kiwan could send the message, a bright blue light filled the ship. When the light faded, 5 strange beings stood on the bridge. They had appeared from nowhere. The aliens were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like metal. Their eyes were large and completely black. They wore dark armor that seemed to move like liquid. The leader stepped forward. "I am Commander Vexval of the Velkari Empire," the alien said. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through metal pipes. "You will surrender your ship and your people." Jiwan stood straight and tried to look brave. "I am Captain Jiwan of the human ship New Soul. We come from Earth. We want to be friends with your people." Dexval made a sound that might have been laughing. "Friends? You are nothing but animals who have learned to build machines. The Velkari Empire has ruled this part of space for thousands of years. We take what we want. We don't want to fight." Jiwan said, "We just want to explore and learn." "You will learn," Dexval said. "You will learn to obey." The alien commander raised one hand toward Dr. Hyunwoo. A strange humming sound filled the air. Hyunwoo's eyes went wide, then became empty and blank. He walked over to stand next to Vexval like a robot. "Your friend now serves the Empire," Vexval said. "Soon you all will. We have done this to 100 worlds. Humans will make good workers." But something was wrong. Dr. Hyunwoo was shaking his head slowly. The blank look in his eyes was fighting against something. Sweat ran down his face as he struggled. I will not ... Hyunwoo said in a weak voice. "You cannot make me ... Vexval looked surprised. "Impossible. No creature can resist Velkari mind control." Hyunwoo fell to his knees, but his eyes were becoming clear again. "Get out of my head," he shouted. The other aliens looked at each other with confusion. They had never seen anything like this before. Jiwan saw her chance. "Computer, emergency jump," she yelled. The ship's faster-than-light drive turned on instantly. Space twisted around them, and they were gone. For several minutes, nobody spoke. They were safe for now, but they all knew this was just the beginning. Dr. Hyunwoo sat on the floor, holding his head. "Doctor, are you okay?" Jiwon asked. "They tried to get inside my mind," Hyunwoo said. "It felt like someone was trying to erase who I am and replace it with their thoughts. But something fought back. Something in my head said no." "Can you tell us anything about them?" Jiwon asked. Hyunwoo closed his eyes and tried to remember. "They have done this many times before. Hundreds of worlds. Thousands of different peoples. They make slaves of everyone they meet. But Captain, I think they made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "They think humans are just another weak species. They don't know that we are different. We are stubborn. We fight back even when we cannot win. They have never met anyone like us before." Lieutenant Kiwon was working at his station. "Captain, I am detecting their ships following us. They put some kind of tracking device on our ship before we jumped." Ji-won felt cold fear in her stomach. How long until they reach Earth? If they can travel as fast as us, maybe 6 months. The bridge was quiet except for the humming of the ship's engines. Everyone understood what this meant. They had found proof that humans were not alone in the universe. But they had also led a powerful enemy straight to their home. "Set course for Earth. Best speed," Ji-won ordered. "Send a message ahead. Tell them that first contact has been made. Tell them we are bringing war." As the new Soul raced through space toward home, Captain Ji-won looked at her crew. They were scared, but she could see something else in their eyes. They were angry. The aliens had tried to steal their friend's mind. They had treated humans like animals. "They think we will be easy to defeat," Ji-won said to her crew. "Let's make sure they learn how wrong they are." The ship flew on through the darkness, carrying the news that would change everything. Behind them, a Velkari fleet followed, confident in their power and certain of victory. They had no idea what humans were really like when pushed into a corner. 6 months had passed since the new Soul returned to Earth with its terrible news. The world had changed completely in that time. Every nation on Earth was now working together to prepare for war. General Mino stood on the bridge of the EDF Defender, looking at the biggest fleet humanity had ever built. "Sir, we have 200 ships ready for battle," reported Colonel Yeo. "Every fighter, every warship, every defense platform is armed and waiting." Minho nodded but felt worried. The reports from Captain Ji-won had been clear. The alien ships were much more advanced than anything humans had, but they had to try. Earth was their home, and they would fight for it. General. Called communications. Officer Yuri. Long-range sensors are picking up movement at the edge of the solar system. Multiple contacts. Very large. On the main screen, dots of light appeared. First 10, then 20, then 50. More kept appearing until the screen was full of enemy ships. "Dear God," whispered someone behind Minho. "There are hundreds of them." "All ships, this is General Minho," he said into his radio. "Remember what we trained for. Protect Earth at all costs. Do not let them reach the planet." The human fleet moved forward to meet the aliens. Every person on every ship knew they were probably going to die, but nobody ran away. They were fighting for their families, their children, their world. The first battle lasted only minutes. Human missiles exploded harmlessly against alien shields. Human lasers bounced off alien armor, like light hitting mirrors. But when the aliens fired back, human ships were destroyed with single shots. "Fall back," Minho ordered as he watched his fleet being torn apart. "All ships fall back to Earth orbit." Down on Earth, people watched the sky with fear. In New York, London, Tokyo, and Seoul, families held each other as news reports showed the battle above. The human fleet was losing badly. Major Suho was in Seoul when the first alien ships broke through Earth's defenses. He was a soldier who had fought in many wars, but he had never seen anything like this. The alien ships were the size of mountains, floating silently over the city. All civilians to emergency shelters, Suho ordered his men, and get ready for ground combat. Blue beams shot down from the alien ships. Where they hit, entire city blocks simply disappeared. There was no explosion, no fire. The buildings just turned to dust and blew away. In her laboratory, Dr. Yuna was working frantically with her computers. She was one of Earth's smartest scientists, and she was trying to understand how the alien weapons worked. Maybe if she could figure that out, humans could find a way to fight back. The energy readings are impossible, she said to her assistant, Dr. Ki-yoon. These weapons use forces we don't even have names for. Outside, they could hear explosions and the sound of aircraft. The aliens were landing troops in every major city. Reports were coming in from around the world. Paris was under attack. Moscow was burning. The aliens were everywhere at once. Dr. Nari was in an underground bunker with a team of researchers. They had been studying the reports from Dr. Hyunwoo about his experience with alien mind control. She was working with Tae-young, a brain expert, and Soman, who understood computers better than almost anyone. Look at these brain scans, Nari said, pointing at her screen. When the aliens tried to control Hyunwoo's mind, something in his brain fought back. These areas here showed unusual activity. Tae-young studied the scans carefully. It's like his brain built walls to keep the aliens out. But how? Maybe it's something all humans have, Soman suggested. Maybe we just don't know it yet. Above ground, the invasion was getting worse. The aliens set up large metal buildings in the center of every city. People called them processing centers. Anyone who was caught was taken there and came out different. They walked like robots and did whatever the aliens told them to do, but not everyone was caught. Suho had gathered a group of soldiers and civilians who were hiding in the subway tunnels under Seoul. They had weapons and supplies, but most importantly, they had anger. The aliens think they can just take our world, Suho told his group. They think we will give up and become their slaves. They are wrong. A young woman named Haijin raised her hand. Major, what can we do? Our weapons don't work against their ships. Then we don't fight their ships, Suho said. We fight their soldiers. We make it expensive for them to be here. We show them that humans don't break easily. In another part of the city, former Special Forces soldier Yemen was leading his own resistance group. They had been watching the processing centers and had learned something important. The aliens don't understand us, Yemen explained to his team. They expect us to be scared and helpless. They don't guard their installations very well because they think we can't hurt them. That night, Yemen's team attacked a processing center. They used bombs made from common chemicals and got inside while the aliens were not expecting trouble. They freed 50 people who had been captured. But something strange happened during the rescue. One of the freed prisoners was a teacher named Hanyul. She had been in alien custody for 3 days, but she seemed completely normal. How are you okay? Asked Yemen. Everyone else who comes out of those places acts like a zombie. Hanyul looked confused. They tried to do something to my mind. I could feel them poking around in my head, but every time they tried to change something, I just got angry and pushed them out. This was important news. Yemen got on his radio and called all the other resistance groups. We have someone here who resisted alien mind control. We need to get her to the scientists underground. All around the world, similar stories were starting to emerge. In London, a construction worker named James had walked out of a processing center completely unchanged. In Tokyo, a nurse named Akiko had not only resisted mind control, but had somehow made one of the alien guards fall down and act confused. Dr. Nari was excited when she heard these reports. "Bring them all here," she told her team. "We need to study every person who has resisted the aliens." As the weeks passed, more processing centers were built. More humans were captured and controlled. But the resistance was learning and growing stronger. They discovered that the aliens had some weaknesses. The alien soldiers were powerful, but they were not very creative. They always did the same things in the same ways. This made it easier for humans to predict what they would do and set traps. Also, the aliens seemed to get confused when humans did unexpected things. During one attack, a resistance fighter named Donghei started singing a popular song while throwing grenades. The alien soldiers stopped shooting and just stared at him for several seconds, as if they could not understand what he was doing. "They don't understand human behavior," reported Donghei later. "It's like they have never met anyone who fights while being happy or sad or angry." General Minho, now commanding the resistance from a hidden base, listened to all these reports with growing hope. The aliens were winning the war, but humans were learning things about their enemy. "They are powerful," he told his officers, "but they don't understand us, and that might be enough." In her laboratory, Dr. Yuna made an important discovery. While studying captured alien technology, she found that their computers seemed to have trouble processing human emotions. Their machines are designed to work with logical, predictable minds, she explained to Dr. Nari. But human thoughts are chaotic and emotional. Our brains work in ways their computers cannot understand. This gave them an idea. Maybe the reason some humans could resist mind control was not because they were stronger, but because they were more human. The people who resisted best were those who felt the strongest emotions: anger, love, fear, hope. As the first year of the invasion ended, Earth was definitely losing the war. Most of the major cities were under alien control. Millions of humans had been turned into mindless workers. The alien empire seemed unstoppable, but in hidden bases and secret laboratories, human scientists and soldiers were learning the most important lesson of the war. The aliens had made one big mistake. They thought humans were just another species to be conquered. They had no idea how wrong they were. 2 years into the invasion, the aliens controlled most of Earth's cities, but they were starting to have problems they had never faced before. Commander Do Yun led one of the largest resistance groups, hiding in the mountains outside Seoul. His team had grown from 20 people to over 300. "The aliens are getting frustrated," reported Scout Minji as she returned from watching the city. "I saw them arguing with each other at the main processing center. They looked angry." This was new. For 2 years, the aliens had always seemed calm and in control. Now they were showing emotions. Do-yoon wondered what this meant. In his underground workshop, engineer Ji-ho was working on something that might help. He had been studying pieces of alien technology that the resistance had captured. Working with Dr. Sulji, a physicist who had escaped from Seoul University, he was trying to understand how alien mind control worked. Their psychic abilities seemed to use some kind of electromagnetic field, Sulji explained to Do-yun. "If we could disrupt that field, maybe we could protect people from their control." Ji-ho held up a small device he had built. "I call it a psychic scrambler. It's made from parts of their own equipment. In theory, it should jam their mind control signals." "In theory?" asked Do-yun. "Well, we need to test it," Ji-ho said nervously. "But we would need to find an alien to test it on." Do-yun smiled grimly. "I think I can arrange that." That night, Do-yun's team attacked a small alien patrol. Instead of trying to kill the aliens, they captured one alive. It was risky and dangerous, but they needed to test Jiho's device. The captured alien was brought to their hidden base. It was tall and gray, like all the others, with those strange black eyes. When it woke up, it immediately tried to take control of the humans around it. Resistance fighter Kyung Soo felt the alien's mind pushing into his thoughts. It felt like ice water flowing through his brain, trying to freeze his will. But then Jiho activated the scrambler. The alien screamed and fell to the ground. Its eyes, which had been completely black, now showed flashes of color. It looked around with confusion and what might have been fear. Where am I? The alien asked. Its voice sounded different now, less mechanical and more alive. Dr. Nari, who had come from her research base to see this, was amazed. The scrambler didn't just block its psychic powers. It seems to have awakened something in its mind. The alien sat up slowly. I remember things before the Great Unity, when I was different. It looked at its hands as if seeing them for the first time. What have you done to me? We set you free, said Do-Yun. Tell us about this Great Unity. The alien, who said its name was Vex-High, explained something terrible. The Valkyrie Empire had once been many different species, but long ago they had all been forced into a collective mind. Individual thoughts and feelings had been erased. Every Valkyrie was now just a part of a giant mental network controlled by their emperor. We have conquered so many worlds, Vex-High said sadly, but we cannot remember why we started. We cannot remember what it was like to choose for ourselves. This information changed everything. The humans realized they were not just fighting an invasion. They were fighting to free an entire empire of enslaved minds. Dr. Nari's research team had made their own breakthrough. Working with Wu Yong, a psychology expert, and Shu Young, who studied human behavior, they had developed training methods to help humans resist mind control. Strong emotions make the mind control weaker, Nari explained to a group of new resistance fighters. When you feel love for your family, anger at the invaders, or hope for the future, you become harder to control. They tested this with volunteers, who let captured aliens try to control them while the scrambler was turned off. The results were amazing. People who focused on their strongest feelings could resist mind control much better than those who tried to stay calm and logical. Hane-ul, the teacher who had first resisted mind control, became their best trainer. Don't try to fight the alien. Thoughts with logic, she taught others. Fight them with everything that makes you human. Remember the people you love. Remember the music that makes you happy. Remember the things that make you angry. Meanwhile, something strange was happening in the alien-controlled cities. The processing centers were having more and more failures. Humans who should have been completely controlled were starting to resist. Some were even helping other prisoners escape. The Valkyrie commanders were confused and angry. They sent reports to their fleet saying that humans were defective and impossible to properly process. Some recommended just killing all humans, instead of trying to enslave them. But then Emperor Vorthik himself arrived on Earth. He was the supreme leader of the Valkyrie Empire, and he had never failed to conquer a world. His ship was huge, bigger than a city, and it carried the most advanced mind control technology in the galaxy. These humans are just animals, he told his commanders. I will show you how to break them properly. Vorthak set up a special processing center in what used to be New York. He brought prisoners from all over the world to test his new methods. One of these prisoners was Hanyul. The Emperor's new mind control device was unlike anything the Valkyrie had used before. It didn't just try to control thoughts. It tried to rewrite the entire personality, erasing everything that made a person human and replacing it with alien programming. When they put Hanyul in the machine, something incredible happened. Instead of being controlled, She somehow turned the machine's power back on itself. The Valkyrie technicians operating the device suddenly found themselves experiencing human emotions. One technician began to cry, which was something no Valkyrie had done in thousands of years. Another started laughing uncontrollably. A third fell to his knees and began asking questions about the meaning of life. "What is happening?" demanded Emperor Vorthak. "Why are my people acting like these animals?" Dr. Yuna, watching from her secret laboratory through hacked alien cameras, realized what had occurred. She didn't just resist the mind control. She reversed it. She's broadcasting human consciousness into their network. The effect spread rapidly through the processing center. Alien guards began to question their orders. Some actually helped human prisoners escape. Others sat down and refused to work, saying they needed time to think about things. Emperor Vorthak was furious. He ordered the processing center to be destroyed and all the affected Valkyrie to be killed. But the damage was done. Word of what had happened spread through the alien fleet. For the first time in their history, individual Valkyrie were starting to think for themselves. They were starting to remember what they had been before the Great Unity. Some were even starting to dream. The Resistance intercepted alien communications that were full of confusion and fear. Valkyrie commanders were reporting that their troops were becoming unreliable and contaminated with human thoughts. Commander Do-yoon gathered his team to plan their next move. "The aliens are scared," he told them. "They don't understand what's happening to them. But we do. We're showing them what it means to be free." Vex High, the captured alien who had been freed by the psychic scrambler, had become an invaluable ally. "The Empire has never faced anything like this," he explained. "For thousands of years, we have conquered by taking away freedom, but humans are teaching us what freedom means." Dr. Nari had a new theory. Human consciousness is like a virus to them. Once one Valkyrie experiences individual thought and emotion, it spreads to others. We're not just fighting for our own freedom anymore. We're fighting to free an entire galaxy. The war was changing. It was no longer just about Earth. It was about something much bigger. The humans had discovered that their greatest weapon was not any technology or military strategy. It was simply being human. And that weapon was spreading through the enemy like wildfire. As Emperor Vorthak prepared his counterattack, he didn't realize that his greatest enemy was not the human resistance fighters or their crude weapons. His greatest enemy was the idea of freedom itself, and that idea was already inside his own empire. The humans had found a way to fight back. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. The discovery that human emotions could break alien mind control changed everything. Resistance groups around the world began working together in ways they never had before. Kung Su and Minji led a team that was learning to use their feelings as weapons. "Focus on what makes you angry," Minji told a group of new fighters. "Think about your family, your home, everything the aliens took from you, and push those feelings outward." The training was dangerous. Sometimes people got so angry or sad that they couldn't control themselves. But when it worked, the results were amazing. Humans learned to project their emotions so strongly that nearby aliens would start acting confused and strange. In his communications bunker, former signal specialist Dong Hai had discovered something important. The aliens used a kind of mental network to talk to each other across the planet. It was faster than radio and harder to block. But it had one weakness: human emotions could get into it. "I've figured out how to hack their mental network," Dong He explained to General Mino. "If we can get enough people to focus their emotions at the same time, we can broadcast human feelings directly into their minds." General Mino looked at the equipment Dong He had built. It was made from alien technology mixed with human computers and broadcasting equipment. "How many people would we need?" For a citywide broadcast? Maybe 1,000 people all concentrating together. For the whole planet? We'd need millions. It seemed impossible. But then Dr. Nari had an idea. What if we don't need them to concentrate? What if we just need them to be human? She explained her theory to the resistance leaders. Every human naturally broadcasts emotions. We do it all the time without thinking about it. That's why the aliens get confused around us. If we could amplify those natural broadcasts. Working together, Dong-Hae and Dr. Nari began building a network of hidden transmitters. Each one was designed to pick up human emotional energy and boost it into the alien communication system. They called it the Emotion Network. The first test was in Seoul. Resistance fighters placed transmitters around the city and then asked everyone to think about home, family, and freedom at the same time. The effect was immediate. Alien guards at the processing centers began sitting down on the job. Some started asking their prisoners questions about human life. Others walked away from their posts entirely and just stood looking at the sky. "It's working," reported Suho from his position watching the main alien base. "The aliens are acting like they're drunk or dreaming. Half of them aren't following orders anymore." But the real test came when Emperor Vorthak tried to regain control. He activated the most powerful mind control device the Velkari had ever built. It was designed to force every human on Earth into submission at once. Instead, it backfired spectacularly. When the device tried to control 7 billion human minds at once, it was overwhelmed by 7 billion different sets of emotions, memories, and dreams. The feedback destroyed not just the device, but the mental conditioning of every Velkari. In the solar system, Captain Yungi, leading a desperate attack on the alien orbital platforms, found himself fighting alongside former enemies. Velkari soldiers who had been freed from mind control were helping humans capture alien ships. "This is Yungi to all human forces," he broadcast. "The alien fleet is in chaos. Half of them are on our side now. This is our chance." The battle for the orbital platforms was unlike anything anyone had imagined. Humans and freed Velkari worked together, using alien technology that the Velkari themselves had forgotten how to use creatively. Admiral Sunwoo coordinated the global counterattack from her command center deep underground. Working with Dayun, an expert in psychological warfare, she began broadcasting everything that made humans special directly into alien minds. "Send them our music," Sunwoo ordered. "Our art, our poetry, our stories. Show them what they gave up when they joined the Great Unity." The broadcasts included everything from children's lullabies to rock concerts, from love poems to angry protest. Songs. The effect on the Velkari was devastating. Many began to remember what they had been before becoming part of the collective mind. One Velkari commander, whose name had been Vekval before the Great Unity, broke down completely when he heard a human song about missing home. He remembered his own world, destroyed by the Empire long ago, and his family, whose faces had been erased from his memory. "We did this to ourselves," he whispered. "We chose to give up everything that made us who we were." The alien civil war was swift and brutal. Velkari, who wanted to return to the collective mind, fought against those who wanted to stay free. But freedom was winning. Once a Velkari experienced individual thought and emotion, they rarely wanted to go back. In the ruins of New York, Minseok and Jisoo led the final assault on Emperor Vorthak's command ship, but they weren't fighting with weapons. They were fighting with something much more powerful. "Remember what it feels like to love someone," Jisoo called out to the Velkari guards blocking their way. "Remember what it feels like to choose your own path." One by one, the guards stopped fighting. Some began to cry. Others fell to their knees as memories of their lost lives came flooding back. Emperor Vorthak was waiting for them in his throne. room. He was surrounded by the last loyal Valkyrie, those who were still completely under the control of the collective mind. "You cannot win," Vorthak said. "Even if you destroy my body, the great unity will continue. The Empire is eternal." "No," said Minseok. "The Empire is already dead. Your people are remembering what they lost, and they don't want to be slaves anymore." Vorthak tried one last desperate attack. He focused all his psychic power on breaking the humans' minds. But instead of controlling them, he found himself overwhelmed by their consciousness. For the first time in thousands of years, Emperor Vorthak experienced human emotions. He felt love and loss, hope and despair, anger and forgiveness. The shock was so great that his connection to the collective mind was severed forever. What have you done to me?" he gasped. "We gave you back your soul," said Jisoo out around the world. The last of the collective mind was breaking apart. Valkyrie everywhere were experiencing individuality for the first time in millennia. Some couldn't handle it and went insane. Others were so grateful that they wept for days, but most simply stood in wonder at the feeling of being free to think their own thoughts and feel their own feelings. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Millions of Valkyrie were now free, but they had no idea how to live as individuals. They had forgotten how to make choices, how to feel emotions, how to be creative. Dr. Nari established schools to help freed Valkyrie learn to be individuals. "It's like teaching children," she explained. "They have to learn everything from scratch, how to make friends, how to express feelings, how to dream." Some Valkyrie chose to leave Earth and try to free other worlds the Empire had conquered. Others decided to stay and learn more about human culture. A few even asked if they could become human citizens. General Mino stood in the ruins of Seoul, watching human and Valkyrie children playing together. It was a strange sight, but somehow it felt right. "What happens now?" asked Captain Jiwan, who had survived the war and was now helping to rebuild. "Now we teach the galaxy what freedom means," Mino replied. "And we make sure nobody ever builds another empire like this one." The humans had won, but not through superior weapons or tactics. They had won by being human, by refusing to give up their emotions, their creativity, and their stubborn belief that every thinking being deserved to be free. It was a victory that would echo across the stars for generations to come. 5 years after the fall of the Valkyrie Empire, the galaxy was a very different place. Admiral Jiwan stood on the bridge of the Earthship Liberty, looking out at a fleet unlike any that had ever existed. Human ships flew alongside vessels from dozens of different worlds, all working together to free the remaining slave colonies. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the Kepler system," said Captain Jungi. "Another 3 worlds have declared independence from their Valkyrie overseers." Jiwan smiled. The liberation was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Once freed Valkyrie shared their knowledge of the Empire's slave worlds, resistance movements had sprung up everywhere. The human virus of freedom was spreading across the galaxy. On Earth, the integration of freed Valkyrie into human society had been challenging but successful. Former Emperor Vorthak, now simply called Vorth, worked with Dr. Nari to help other former Empire members adjust to individual life. "I still have nightmares," Vorth told her during one of their counseling sessions. "I dream about all the worlds we destroyed, all the minds we enslaved. How do you live with that kind of guilt?" "One day at a time," Dr. Nari replied, "and by making sure it never happens again." Vorth had become one of the most effective advocates for galactic freedom. His knowledge of Empire technology and strategy was invaluable, but more importantly, his transformation from absolute ruler to free individual showed other Valkyrie that change was possible. The freed Valkyrie who stayed on Earth had formed their own communities, but they were not separate from human society. They worked alongside humans, learned human customs, and slowly developed their own individual personalities. Some, like Vex High, had become almost completely human in their thinking and behavior. Others maintained more of their original Velkari nature, but added human emotions and creativity to it. The result was a new kind of being, neither fully human nor fully Velkari, but something unique. Dr. Hyunwoo, the first human to resist Velkari mind control, had become the head of the new Galactic Freedom Institute. His job was to study other forms of mental domination and develop ways to counter them. The Velkari Empire was not the only civilization that used mind control, he explained to a meeting of galactic representatives. We've identified at least 12 other species that have similar technologies. Our work is far from over. The liberation fleets had become very sophisticated. Each ship carried teams of humans trained in emotional projection, freed Velkari, who could communicate with still enslaved populations, and various aliens who had been freed from other controlling civilizations. Commander Do-Yun led one such team. On a mission to the Rigel system, where a species called the Zithani had been enslaved for over 200 years. The Zithani were plant-based beings who communicated through chemical signals rather than thoughts or words. "How do we broadcast human emotions to plants?" asked Sergeant Minji. "We don't," replied Dr. Sulji, who had joined the mission as a specialist. "In alien biology, we teach them that diversity is strength. Plant communities that have many different types of plants are healthier than those with just one type." The liberation of the Zithani took months, but it worked. Once they understood that they didn't all have to be identical, the enslaved Zithani began developing individual personalities and abilities. Their rebellion against their Velkari overseers was swift and successful. Back on Earth, engineers like Jiho were working on new technologies based on what they had learned from the war. The psychic scramblers had evolved into freedom broadcasters that could help break down any kind of mental control or conditioning. "The key is not to force people to be free," Jiho explained. "It's to show them what freedom feels like and let them choose for themselves." Some of the most powerful tools in the galactic liberation were human artists, musicians, and writers. Donghae had become famous across dozens of worlds for his songs of freedom, music that seemed to awaken the desire for independence in any species that heard it. "Art is the opposite of control," Donghae said during a concert on New Vulcan. "When you create something, you are expressing your individual thoughts and feelings. That's the most free thing anyone can do." The old Velkari Empire had covered thousands of star systems. Liberating all of them would take generations. But the process was accelerating as more species joined the freedom movement. Each liberated world brought new knowledge, new ideas, and new ways of thinking about freedom and individuality. The galaxy was becoming more diverse and creative than it had ever been. Some of the most surprising allies were former Velkari commanders who had been among the last to accept freedom. General Kreshvar had been one of the Empire's most ruthless military leaders. After his liberation, he had spent 2 years in deep depression, unable to cope with the memories of what he had done. But eventually, with help from human therapists and freed Velkari counselors, he found a new purpose. He became one of the most effective military leaders in the liberation fleets, using his knowledge of Empire tactics to free other worlds. "I cannot undo what I did as a slave to the collective mind," he said, "but I can spend the rest of my life making sure other people get the chance to be free." Not every liberation was successful. Some species were so thoroughly conditioned that they couldn't accept freedom. Others were so damaged by centuries of mental control that they couldn't function as individuals. The failed liberations were heartbreaking for the human teams. Captain Kyung-soo had led a mission to free a species called the Morvani, only to watch Them voluntarily returned to slavery because they were too frightened to make their own decisions. We can't save everyone, Admiral Sunwoo reminded him. But we have to try. And we have to remember that even the failures teach us something. The humans learned to be patient. They established freedom schools on liberated worlds where former slaves could learn to live as individuals. They created support networks for those struggling with the transition. Most importantly, they never forced anyone to be free. As the years passed, the galactic community that emerged was unlike anything that had existed before. Instead of being dominated by one powerful empire, it was a loose confederation of free worlds that cooperated by choice rather than force. The humans had inadvertently become the leaders of this new galactic community, not because they were the strongest or smartest, but because they had been the first to prove that freedom was possible and worth fighting for. We never wanted to conquer the galaxy, President Haniel said during a speech marking the 10th anniversary of the liberation. We just wanted to be left alone. But when we discovered that the galaxy was full of slaves, we couldn't ignore it. The speech was broadcast to thousands of worlds and translated into hundreds of languages. On every world were thinking beings. Lived in freedom, they paused to remember the small blue planet that had taught them what it meant to be free. Dr. Nari, now elderly but still working, had established the Universal Declaration of Sentient Rights. It was simple but powerful. Every thinking being has the right to their own thoughts, their own feelings, and their own choices. The Declaration had been adopted by every free world in the galaxy. It was taught to children of every species, and it was broadcast constantly into the remaining slave systems, planting seeds of rebellion wherever it was heard. The war against the Valkyrie Empire had lasted only 3 years, but the liberation of the galaxy would take centuries. And the humans were content with that. They had learned that freedom was not something you won once and kept forever. It was something you had to choose every day and help others choose as well. Standing on the observation deck of a space station orbiting New Earth, former resistance fighter Suho watched ships from dozens of worlds come and go. Children of different species played together in the station's parks. Artists collaborated on projects that no single species could have imagined. Was it worth it? Asked his granddaughter, a young woman who had grown up in this free galaxy. Suho thought about all the people who had died in the war, all the suffering. That could have been avoided if the Valkyrie had never built their empire in the first place. But then he looked at the thriving galactic community around him. Yes, he said, it was worth it. Not just because we won, but because we proved something important. We proved that no one has the right to own another person's mind. And we proved that when free people work together, they can accomplish anything. The galaxy was vast, and there were still dark corners where slavery and oppression existed. But the light of freedom was spreading, carried by humans and aliens working together. And wherever that light reached, it brought with it the most powerful force in the universe. The simple idea that every thinking being deserved the right to be themselves. The aliens had tried to enslave humanity, thinking they were just another weak species to be conquered. They had been wrong. Humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons. It was their absolute refusal to accept that anyone should live without freedom. And that strength had changed the galaxy forever.